All right, so here we're going to do a quick run through of a product called BackupMinder. It's open source and it's been created by Watchman monitoring, although it can be used by anyone. The goal of the product is to take a system that creates backups that happen over and over and over again in one folder that may not have any kind of limit, and we're going to limit the number of backups that can go into that one folder and create a monthly archive where we keep the last backup from each month. And that way we have a long-term archive going forward. And we make sure that we don't fill up our hard drive with thousands, hundreds of thousands of backups. Today we're going to do this with QuickBooks Server, which is a product that will make backup after backup after backup. But other people have used this with Daylight or Lightspeed or FileMaker Pro in some cases because you get that monthly archive. So what we're going to do first is we'll go to backupminder.org and we'll download a copy. And run that, get the installer going. The installer consists of an application that'll live in the applications folder that will actually go ahead and let us configure it. But BackupMinder itself will run without a user logged in, just run in the background, no problem. And there's a launch T that controls the operation of that. And then the product launches every time something's modified in the backup folder. So in this case, we're going to go here to the applications folder, go to BackupMinder, and we're going to create a new backup set. Okay, so we're unlocked, and we're going to add a new set. We're going to go through the wizard, and in this case, we're going to call this backup set QuickBooks, but the backup set could be called anything that we want as long as it's got a file system friendly name. So we'll call this QuickBooks, and then we're going to tell BackupMinder where we need to go and look for the backups that are being created. So in this case, on the desktop folder, we've got a folder called Backups, and that is where QuickBooks is putting these backups. And I see that they're all named Fixed Environment, so that'll be important later. But this is where the backups are created. So we'll go here, we'll select that, and now BackupMinder needs to know. We'll go to next. Now BackupMinder needs to know where we're going to keep these archives. So I'm going to go back to the desktop, and the same place, typically the right choice is to make a new folder that is called archives, and that we typically will put it next to the backup source, but this could be anywhere you want. The BackupMinder is going to leave, we're going to end up with 12 copies of the source backup each year, the latest from the last one from each month. Now, here we're being shown the file name, and we need to give BackupMinder something to key off of, something to look for in general. So I'm going to use fixed environmental, and it doesn't really make a difference what we put in here as long as it matches the file name. We're going to type in fixed environment, and that's really enough. The important part here is that we're matching on part of the name that's going to exist in every single every single backup file. We'll go over here, hit next, and now we'll go into number settings. Now here is where we actually run into where we actually get to define the problem. Normally in QuickBooks, our options are to overwrite the last backup or not to overwrite the last backup. And if we're overwriting the last backup, that means that we have no history whatsoever, unless you're constantly pulling the files back out with some other service. But this way, we're taking BackupMinder. We're saying, okay, only go ahead and keep the last backups, but keep the last 90 of them. Now in this case, we're doing QuickBooks will back up twice an hour, so 90 really isn't going to leave a whole lot of breathing room. Maybe we'll go ahead and make maybe we'll leave 180 copies in there. Maybe we'll go ahead and leave 99 copies in there. So here's what we're doing. We're looking in a folder called, we're making a backup set named QuickBooks. We're looking in a folder called Backups. We're leaving everything, we're leaving the archive in a folder called Archive. We're looking for files that say fixed env, and we're going to leave 99 copies in there. Now, users of Watchman monitoring will get an additional benefit. They can be notified if their number of days go by without BackupMinder having to do any work. And in this case, this is a QuickBooks server. We really expect it to be backing up all the time. So I'm going to go ahead and set this to 1. And that way, the Watchman monitoring subscriber will get notified by Watchman monitoring if BackupMinder hasn't run in a day. And of course, that's just an additional feature that's not required for the use of BackupMinder. And here we are. So as I go through and we go to look in our backups folder, we'll see there's 174 items. Now the first time we trigger anything happening in this folder, that's when BackupMinder will kick in. And as I take this file and delete it, that means the launchd will see that something's happened in the folder and it's run, and it's going to go ahead and trim down so that there's only 99 copies of the fixed environmental. If I scroll down to the bottom, we'll see that there's a few test files that are in there, and because their name didn't match here, they're not affected in any way. But we certainly did destroy anything that was past 99 copies of that backup file. And then once we see the backups, we'll see that we can go into the archives folder, and BackupMinder will keep an archive here. So we're going to get the latest from today, and then at the end of every month, we'll end up with another copy of the archive. So this will be our long-term history, and we're good there. So that's BackupMinder, and it's free to use, and we hope it serves you well.